Gentlemen, welcome. United Cultures Leadership Institute at Lackawanna College and its Sojourner Truth Symposia, Volume 2, Issue 3, presents The Big Picture in a Multicultural World, featuring the matrix of domination players, addressing the question, how could you? The words you hear expressed are those of these people, written and given human voice. After they've communicated to you, you will have an opportunity to ask your questions and share your views. Without further ado, I present to you the big picture in a multicultural world. How could you? This is Alyssa Bauer.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to be free. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly, into the light of the dark black night. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
I am Kayla, this is me.
And I'm Wayne, reading William.
The big picture of the current society is based on the existence of the matrix of domination. It is highly implicit how the intertwining works of race, class, and gender affect how each group distress and view one another. The closed-minded societal status present today is the main cause of the never-ending isms. Discrimination has decreased exponentially from the beginning of history to now. Thus, there is no doubt in my mind that it couldn't eventually be exonerated altogether. However, not one person can do it alone, and it would have to be an entire society's effort to end it.
The big picture is that society is just the majority's way of thinking that is accepted as the norm, and that it is acceptable to be reluctant to accept anyone out of that norm. The norm is not set in stone, as the norm for one group may be a radical difference from another group's norm. Take the simple example of water. Water is accepted as tasteless, and another drink, say milk, would be described as having a taste. Water only has no taste because it is the common drink that is used around the world, and it's a necessity to survive. If that norm was flipped, and milk was the basic necessary nutrient to sustain life, then if you think about it, water would then have a distinct taste, and milk would be described as tasteless. That is a very simple example, but the same goes for society. If the norm in society is flipped to something different, that norm would then be considered to be the different one.
I do understand how the severity of this ongoing problem negatively affects the lives of innocent people, but the absurdity of the comments and action of people is not necessary. I am sure that everyone has those moments when you let something slip from your mouth, but some people go out of their way to have a voice. I have concluded that a lot of the time when people speak up about these types of problems, the after effect is not usually positive. My personal knowledge of history is not the strongest, but I understand enough to where my points and ideas can be supported by history. How can people talk about the adverse societal issues when they have no understanding of history?
In our society, there's a very distinct view on how certain people should act, taking men and women as examples. Men are expected to be tough, emotionally crippled, masculine people, while women are expected to be nurturing, sensitive, and very feminine. This is the norm. If a man acts out of that norm, they are accused of being homosexual, weak, or feminine. If a woman acts out of that norm, they are called butch or tomboy. Why can a man not act on his emotions as much as women and not be criticized? Same goes for women acting like men.
In general, the society today is extremely diverse, and this is where the root of multicultural misunderstanding develops. Worldview is one's opinion and understanding of life in general. Everyone develops a worldview from ideas and attitudes about the world, oneself, and your personal beliefs. Mark C. Taylor states that just because people do not have the same beliefs does not mean they do not believe at all. One that embraces uncertainty and enables us to respect others whom we do not understand. He explains the complexity of the world and that by recognizing what we are unfamiliar with is how we will make the future an easier place to live in. Since one's worldview is based on the personal experiences, upbringing, culture, class, and etc., individuals with different worldviews could be misunderstood and looked at as being wrong. But what is right? What is normal? Both of these questions are important to the concept of diversity. The egocentrism that people carry within themselves are a negative influence on society. Because people have their own views on the concepts of society, they automatically assume that there is no other way to see the world. Therefore, they do not see the point in learning and understanding other individuals' views and ideas. How can people think that their view is the only view? Sometimes the only reason for someone's inconsideration of others' opinions is plain and simple: ignorance. They may have been brought up in a manner where they have always had the upper hand, been a part of the majority, therefore did not even have to consider alternative ways of living.
It is socially acceptable in most cases to not want to accept someone from out of the norm. In high school, it was okay to not want to hang out with that weird kid who wants to take over the world, or that girl who doesn't say one word the whole year, because they are out of the norm for that environment. In the workplace, that creepy employee that always insists on singing their favorite songs as loud as they can while they do dishes, or whatever the task may be, is generally steered clear of, and no one gets scorned for not accepting them. On the contrary, they may get accepted themselves for refusing to accept those people. There may be pressure by your peers or a group that you want to fit into to ridicule or not accept that person, which would lead you to do it.
The egocentric way of thinking among many individuals is the root to diversity problems today. These thoughts are then voiced and sometimes revealed through actions. Everyone has witnessed another person conduct a crude act that portrayed a closed view of the humanity, where you think, how could somebody do that? I am an observer and typically choose to avoid giving my voice in a conversation because I would rather compare my ideas and views to others before I say something to change their minds. For me, I use this as a test to observe whether someone is true to their personal outlook or subjective by the other person's belief. Consequently, I would never irrationally make a decision to generate a discriminatory action. When I witness people do something unreasonable to make another person who does not have the same worldview as them upset, I almost feel embarrassed for them.
There have been wars fought over different groups in the same society who think their way of doing things is more acceptable than another's. Take the Civil War, for example. The North and South fought for a variety of reasons, including slavery. The North thought that it should be stopped, and the South wanted it to continue. Both sides were part of one society, the American society, but they had different views and waged war over them.
Today's society could be argued to be more diverse than ever. So why are there so many clashes between different cultural groups? Everyone will always have their own view of the world, but if each person would take time to study and appreciate all other worldviews, we would realize culture differences and possibly curb the matrix of domination in certain aspects. This being said, everyone should take time to learn where other people get their ideas from and realize that nothing is absolute and nothing is always certain.
In America, we have many different groups who believe different things, but we are all part of one country. We are separate from other countries, and we all make up one society that generally believes in the same values, a society that will stand up to defend those values.
I'm Kendra, and this is me.
I'm Leon, and this is Mike.
The big picture is complicated, scary, and confusing to everyone, but those feelings are more enhanced in a young adult. Minorities will always be the oppressed. The more dominant race will always have it easier than the races under them. The matrix of domination model is accurate and definitely represents the way our society works. However, in my opinion, the matrix of domination shouldn't even exist in the first place. People should be looked at as human beings first and foremost. Gender should be looked at next, and race, sexual orientation, religion, and social status should not matter in this world. Everyone should be treated equally. Opportunities should not be hindered for others because they are not a part of the dominant race or majority.
In today's society, there will always be differences and disagreements. In America and the world, will never have the same ideas. For instance, racism may not be abundant as it may have been a few decades ago, but people who don't agree, they need to open their eyes and just ask any minority. I bet that any Black, Hispanic, Chinese, or any minority has been faced with or seen racism towards them or others. That fact is inescapable. No matter what people may think, Black Americans have only dreamed of a Black president, and some Caucasians won't even accept the fact that Obama is Black. I see on TV and newspaper articles every month almost asking questions as if, like, is Barack Obama really American? Is he Muslim? And questions so far off as, is Obama the Antichrist? Sad thing is that some people actually believe this trash. There are still those people out there that no one can make any sense of. Even big-name actors and political icons have so-called slipped up in their words, as they may say. For example, Mel Gibson and a white comedian have called one of his own fans a nigger when the person paid to see him perform. Not to say that all white people or any single race is the main factor, because the fact that stereotypes and judgment will always live. Since the events of 9/11, I know that some might think twice or feel uneasy sitting next to Middle Eastern or a man on their flight.
Unfortunately, the fact that there is a majority and minority often causes conflicts between the minority groups and the majority. I think that if we as a society made these things evident enough to our government, they would hopefully take a closer look at the demographics of the situation at hand and evaluate how they, as world leaders of our country, could change these inequalities. I think if we start with our country and change, there is definitely a possibility to begin change throughout the world. I think the responsibility of eliminating the unequal treatment lies within our world leaders. The situations of inequality, however, often go unrecognized, and the leaders of those of the majority don't see or understand what minority groups speak of when they speak of their unfair treatment. Just because the Emancipation Proclamation abolished slavery and there was a civil rights movement in the United States does not mean minorities across the world don't still face prejudices and inequalities.
Another form of racism or prejudgment that hasn't even fully developed into what it's going to be is the gay and lesbian rights. They're only recently allowing gays and lesbians to marry in some states, and still that had to be voted for. That was not a right that homosexuals had. In my eyes, I feel a lot of tension that is going to occur between homosexuals and heterosexuals in the coming future if more states allow the right for 2 males and 2 females to become married. Since these rights have been passed, I myself have seen a lot more homosexuals coming out of the closet, especially at early ages, which I don't know if it's safe or not. It's a little uneasy for some in particular that immature, such as middle school, high school students. Even as early as elementary school, kids are taught sex occurs between the 2 different sexes, not the same. Basically, some people are afraid of change and can't accept it as well as others. In younger people, bullying and being made fun of by others is part of grade school. Just for another fact,